Pastor Lee Harder from St. Paul Lutheran of Baverde, coming to you with another vlog for this first week of August. And I gotta be honest, I don't know where to start. When I watch just a little bit of news, I encounter a treasure trove of topics to reflect on. Personally, I watch Fox. Not that they don't have a bias in reporting the news, they do. Definitely conservative, which is where I tend to lean. But I like that they're honest about it. I've noticed other networks claim to be unbiased, but it's a claim I have seen has no basis in truth or reality. And that said, you might not be aware of some of these stories if you watch only the other networks. I have seen the elimination of drinking straws because they are apparently evil. The city of Austin, Texas, considering a name change because, historically, Stephen F. Austin owned slaves. And then there's the 43% of millennials who quit their jobs after 2 years so they can experience life at a more leisurely pace because of the unfair and demanding expectations in the workplace, requiring that they actually show up to work on time, unfairly designated by an employer, and then put in a full day. How unfair. In a similar vein, I've noticed we are having more difficulty with applying words like dedication, personal responsibility, accountability, and integrity to the living of our lives. Such words used to be important, and not just as words, but as the ways in which we related to the people around us. Maybe that's why when I came across an interesting and revealing statistic, I made a connection with some real concerns I was addressing at a gathering of Christians this last weekend. According to reliable data, 90% of all Christian churches, that's regardless of denomination, have memberships of 350 people or less. Yet, a little over 50% of all Christians, again, regardless of denomination, hold memberships in large and mega type churches. Why is that the case, one might ask? I think I've got the answer. I think it's because in a large church, it is easier to be a Christian without the weight of being dedicated to service and furthering God's purposes in the world. In addition, it's easier to avoid holding oneself to personal responsibility for the things we do in our relationships to God and one another, and accepting accountability for our actions before God. Allow me to express myself simply. In bigger churches, with bigger numbers of fellow members, we can keep our anonymity. Someone else will do the work we should be doing and are commanded to do by God in His name. Look, too many churches, both large and small, have members and not disciples. Members show up to church on Sunday morning, or when, for convenience sake, worship is held in such a church, pick up their "I'm a Christian" name tag, find their seat, listen to the service and the preacher, reminding them of God's love and how we are all going to heaven, put their check into the plate, provided personal finances allow it, and when the service is done, as if service in God's name is ever done, head for the door, making sure to put back their "I am a Christian" name tag in its proper place so they can pick it up next time they come, which might not be for weeks. Crossing the threshold as they exit into the real world, they again resume planning on how they are going to serve those worldly demands and desires. Disciples, on the other hand, come to worship to be recharged, so they can go back into the world proclaiming, living, and witnessing to the good news of Jesus Christ and the salvation he makes real to those who truly believe in him with an active faith. Now, I admit, I'm being somewhat flippant in my defining of members, but only a little bit. Christians, disciples, not members, whose faith is real, hold words like dedication, personal responsibility, accountability, and integrity to be measures of their faith in action. It's what they do. My fear is that we are creating a generation, and maybe several, that want God on their terms and not God's. Dedication to God for them must be convenient to their schedule. Personal responsibility isn't important because it's always the other guy's fault anyway. No one is accountable for their own actions since there are always extenuating circumstances. And integrity, it's just too costly to worry about. Being a Christian disciple demands hard work and surrender to God's will. It requires our involvement now, not at some time of our making. Serving God is not always convenient, but it is always rewarding. I realize I might be generalizing my attitude towards millennials. After all, 43% isn't all of them, but it sure is a big number, big enough to be concerned about. Nor do we know what kind of impact those attitudes that they have will have on the generations to come and what they will learn from and follow in them. I do know this. When defining an active member of the church equals coming to church once a month when it fits the schedule as opposed to every week, there's a problem. And I don't think it's with God. And those are my thoughts. God bless.